Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. On this episode, a very good friend of mine, ours, and you know what? I don't think I've said this yet, Stephen, but a fellow tanker. I don't think I've disclosed that on the podcast. A fellow tanker is joined us, Mr. Steven Kuhn, an Army veteran. Well, you have to be an Army veteran if you're a tanker. So great to have you, Stephen.
Thanks. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, fellow tankers, man. There we go.
That's right. That's right. We'll try not to get into too many war
Yeah.
stories of breaker bars and breaking track and all that other crazy stuff that we used to do back in the day. But what I really want to know, I want to dive right into it. Those of y'all listen to the show know I don't beat around the bush. Tell us about Humble Alpha. What was the inspiration that kicked off Humble Alpha?
Well, Unleash Your Humble Alpha, which is the book here. The name came from my co-author and I, Lane Balone, and myself. We met in Peru at one of our retreats. Well, it was the first time he was in Peru. I used to go there every year. We hit it off. And the next year we went back and we said, man, we need to work together. And it wasn't even a year. It was a couple months later. I said, we need to work together. And he had a group called Authentic Alpha. And I had a group called Humble Man. And we just looked at each other and we're like, Humble Alpha. Oh, there you go. All right, well, that's the new name, and that was it. It was literally like a 2-minute thing. And then, we got to know each other, and he's like, how did you, I worked for Mick Jagger, Olivia Newton-John, Andrea Bocelli, the European Parliament, different countries, spoke everywhere, did TV, acted, was in movies, produced films, ran big corporations, had my own businesses, cocktail bars, nightclubs, whatever. He's like, how'd you do that? It asked me these questions all the time, and I couldn't answer. Like, I didn't have a method, right? I just did it. It was like who I was. And so he's like, man, you need to teach people this stuff, you know? So I said, all right, let's write it down. And we started writing it down, started going through the interview process and sort of extracting it from me. And then he joined in. And next thing you know, we have 5 chapters of a book that basically show people how to extract from themselves or unleash from themselves an operating system from which they can build. What that means is, just like a computer has an operating system, it doesn't change with every app or update. It stays the same operating system. And because you know and trust that operating system, you flip your laptop open and you go to town. Oh, there's a button, you got to do an update, but you know the operating system's safe. The same thing in life. If you have an operating system and you can articulate that and you know what that is, that gives you more power than most people can ever imagine. Because you know what your core principles are, you know why you operate the way you do, you know how to get what you want through what the things that you do. And that's what came out of it. And what came out of that book is me knowing my own operating system and Lane knowing his operating system. It's a powerful thing.
That's really cool because what I think about is, and you just glossed over what you were doing before, but you were really successful, and you don't know why you were successful. It was just it was just who you are. You just saw something and you went and did it. Saw something else, went and did it, and then it takes a Lane, fellow brother of the regiment, to come along and kind of prod you as any good brother of the regiment. How'd you do that? You should be teaching that, right? I think
that's exactly what happened.
Go ahead.
No, it's exactly what happened, and it's a beautiful thing. Lane is 22 years or 23 years younger than me. I think he is 23 or 24 years younger than me, and I have no problems listening to anyone. Like, I know I can learn from everyone, and to have that attitude, you got to be humble, and to be humble, you got to know who you are. Otherwise, you're trying to present to yourself who you are, present everyone around you who you are. Humility comes from knowing your identity. Mm-hmm. And so because I knew my identity, didn't know how, or I couldn't explain my identity, but I knew who I was, and now I can explain it. Now I know who I am, and I know my core power. And when I know my core, since I know my core power and have the operating system from which I can launch that, I'm very powerful in what I do because I only do that. I don't do anything else. I just do that. And that allows you to weed out all the things that are exciting and shiny objects that have nothing to do with your power.
You mentioned that you weren't really you were successful, but you weren't really sure why, like what was there. Something we Dad, you and I joke about all the time in rugby. The people who are the best really struggle to teach it. So how did you come to put that into words?
Well, we couldn't write it because I believe that writing your own book, when it comes to that sort of a process of articulating tangible applied knowledge, is really difficult because you start thinking, and like you said, I glossed over. right? And I would gloss over a lot of things.
Mhm.
And the person interviewing myself and Lane would be like, wait, what did you say? You know, this, that, and they'd be like, what do you mean? How does that, I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, for me, it's normal. Like, no, what? And they turn out to be the biggest parts of the book, the biggest lessons in the book, because for us, it's just intrinsic and it wasn't something that we had to focus on.
Hmm.
So the interview process, it was like turning on a faucet. The more questions I asked, the more memories I had. I was like, oh, wow, this happened. Oh, yeah, now I know. And I had to go back through my life and find out, when was the first time that I created space, right? Creating space is showing up wholly and fully for the person in front of you with no preconceived notions or cookie cutter solutions, focusing on the only thing that you can control, and that is the intention. You can't control the outcome, so why worry about it? And when you do that, you create a space around everyone you're with, and you come up with ideas and solutions that otherwise you wouldn't have come up with. And I'm like, so I know that's what I do, but when was the first time I did that? And we're thinking. I'm going through days and days and weeks. And then we were in Washington, D.C. at the Military Influencers Conference. And Lane came and visited my parents for a night, stay overnight, and we went back and flew home. He flew to Colorado, I flew to Europe. And on the way back to D.C., to the airport, I passed my first girlfriend's house. And I was like, oh, man, I wonder if she's still there. And I wrote her, like, hey, I just passed your house. And she's like, oh my God. And then she goes, oh, I'm so sorry what I did to you. Cause she cheated on me, all that kind of stuff in high school. And then it hit me. Holy cow. That was the first time I created space, because she was basically going out with me, but doing stuff with other people, everyone but me. So, it was like one of those kind of things. Right. And I remember sitting in the front seat of my 68 Chevy, right? Front seat of my 68 Chevy Chevelle. It was a bench seat, so it was really, really cool. You could slide right over. Remember those things, right?
Mhm.
And
Stories
yeah,
about a Chevelle.
there we go. And I'm sitting there, and she would not give me the love that I was giving her. Like, she wouldn't, And finally, I said, I don't care. I'm just going to give. No expectations. I don't care what happens. I love to love, so that's what I'm going to do. And I was like, holy cow, that's the first time I created space. And so this is how the process went. That's why it took a year, because you don't just come up and say, oh, I did this and that's what happened. Here's the model.
Mhm.
It just sort of, it took a lot of work, a lot of work, but it's beautiful. It came out so beautiful.
Well, that reflection, I think, is a powerful thing. And, before you and Lane got together and started Humble Alpha and created that, you were doing the speaker gig, and you were bouncing all over Europe, and speaking in the native tongues of the countries and all that other cool stuff. You had to have been telling them something. There had to have been something from the inside that you were sharing. So I'm fascinated. I was going to say puzzled, but no, I'm more fascinated by this, because you were able to get up on the stage and talk to, I think you were in the thousands of people, sort of thing. But yet you couldn't put it into a book, which is just.
I couldn't teach it. I couldn't teach it. I could talk about it all day long, but I couldn't teach it.
Yeah.
I could tell you what I did. I could tell you how I did it, but I couldn't give you the steps how to do it, because, everyone's different, that kind of stuff. Like, how do you do it? And I would literally stand up there and I'd be telling stories. People like, man, that was amazing. And people would be like, aren't you selling anything? I'm like, no. What you should sell a program. I'm like, about what? About what you just talked about. I'm like,
how would I do that?
Yeah. It's like, and it just went on from there. And literally, I was on German TV, I was on Austrian TV, I was in Switzerland, I was in the UK. I did a best-selling book in Germany as well, about the war, the first Gulf War. Came out the day the second Gulf War started, or in 2003, and that made it an automatic bestseller, which put me on TV for a year, multiple stations every day for a year. And I would just talk about my experiences, and I got really vulnerable and got really honest on these TV shows, because I can tell you the first time that I used HIT, and that was the day after the war started in 2003. I was on a talk show, 20 million viewers live. The ambassador to America, or from America to Germany, the ambassador from the UK, Sir Peter Ustinov was there. Peter Maffei, you probably know who he is. Bunch of celebrities, a lot of people, and it's just like full studio. And two of the best competing moderators of two different talk shows were on the same talk show moderating. Huge, right? And they are asking questions. So, Mr. So-and-so, or Mr. Ambassador, and this, that, and the other, asking all these questions about the war. And they kept looking like, well, Steven's been to war. Why don't you ask him? Like I'm owning this studio with 20 million people. So I'm like, boy, I better be really honest. And because they asked me, okay, I got a question for you, Mr. Kuhn. I'm like, yes. Are you against this war? I was like, oh shit, what do I say? You're like, what do I say? Oh my God, I'm in Germany. If I say I'm not against the war, they're gonna be like, they think I'm, crazy. If I say I'm against the war, then the Americans are gonna think. And then I said, wait a second, Steven. This all happened within a millisecond. Wait a second, Steven. Just tell the truth. So I said, you know what? I'm against this war. I respect my president. I love the soldiers, the brothers and sisters that I serve with, but I'm against this war. And it was like, it just like, and then I opened up and I just started talking. I just started letting it loose, right? But in a manner of teaching the best I could. I wasn't just like rambling. I was like really, sort of articulating the processes that I went through. That was the first time I used HIT, honesty, right? Because honesty, integrity, and transparency, that's what HIT is. Honesty with yourself while you do say and think like you do. Transparency is how you step into the world with that honesty, and it's your ongoing reputation, which makes you authentic. And that all, the byproduct is integrity. Integrity is doing what you say you're going to do, not doing what you say you're not going to do. And when you screw up, fix it, make it better, and apologize. That's integrity for me. And so when I live by HIT, the world around me is in order because I'm never dishonest to anyone because I'm always honest to myself first. As soon as I'm dishonest to somebody or even like not being like disclosing information that I should, that'll ring an alarm bell in my honesty core. And I'll be like, okay, no, I better tell the truth. And I always do. And I love it. And it's you don't have to remember anything when you don't lie.
I love that's good. That's so true, right? When you are your authentic self, you're true to yourself. It's really easy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I mean, I find it really ironic to take us down this rabbit hole for just a second. Is that people are so worried about what other people think that they try to be somebody else that's not who they are.
Yeah.
And they're not being authentic. And then they got to remember, well, was I a fighter pilot or a doctor? When I met that, that lady.
It's very true. And unfortunately, that's what most people are because we're not taught how to extract our identity. Who are we? I can ask 100 people, what's your operating system? Who are you? What's your true identity? 95% will say, I have no idea. They'll be like, I believe in honesty and being a good person. And okay, how do you put that in play? How do you use that? What do you mean? It just never happens. And that's what happened to me with Lane. I was forced to figure out, how am I doing what I'm doing? And now I know. And so I can be better at it.
I want to go back to what you're talking about in that interview. Do you think that, because with that situation, it's something that I think is very easy to extrapolate to other types where you basically had a black solution and a white solution. And you, through honesty, found the nuance. Is that the path you found there? Because that's what it seems like, is that you were stuck between trying to show face to this group, showing a face to this group. When in truth, just like most things, it's nuanced, a little bit of this, little column A, little column B. Is honesty the key there?
It was completely the key because balanced forces, that's the nature. Nature is always in balance, no matter what happens. And I call the balanced forces is the force of nature. So when you're balanced within yourself, or you're fully integrated or honest with yourself, balanced forces will balance out the energy that you're giving out. And that will make everyone around you, both sides, front and center, whatever, all appeased. They'll understand. Oh yeah, it makes sense. Oh yeah, it makes sense. And so I always talk about balanced forces. I always talk about balanced forces and how that can really create a flowing life, if you will.
And I'm going to jump around a little bit too. When did the vet piece come in? Because,
good question.
Because you were doing, honestly, for those of you who don't know, Steven doesn't live in America. We still love him. He still loves America, but he lives in Hungary, and he's been living in Europe. You've been living in Europe for, I can't remember.
Well, I served 7 years in the military, and then I've been here for 29 years after that.
Yeah. So that's kind of it's a very easy thing. And actually I talk with vets about this a lot because I know that I had this feeling too when I got out. Is like, hey, thank you very much for the experience, Army. I'm done. And then I felt this hole in my life and finally realized that wasn't the right thing. Those people,
Yeah.
those guys and gals mean a lot to me. And I went back to it and then started to include it in my life again.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what was the experience for you?
Well, I was in Europe, so I got a European out. I didn't even go home. I didn't go back to. I got a European out processed here and walked off base, and I was turned around, couldn't get back on. So it was like, wow, okay. And I had no support structure at all. There's a few GIs that stuck around. I was in Berlin, and it was. I just decided, okay, I'm going to pour myself into the civilian world, learn German, make it happen, and I did. And then I just kept going on. Occasionally, I'd meet another vet, but it was so far from what I was doing. And I got really deep into the corporate world as a contractor. I got into my own businesses. I got into celebrityism and the royal sort of circles. And I just really dug in deep, all intrinsically. And then we had kids. And I got married second time and had kids. And after 20 years of traveling 4 days a week, right, I decided I'm going to stay home. I'm going to do this all online. So I stopped whatever I was doing and started anew. And my wife's like, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea. So one of the marketing things that I always talk about is who's your audience, right? And what language do you speak? I was like, well, I'm pretty successful. I made millions and millions of dollars. Veterans. I haven't spoken to veterans for a long time. Let me go to a veteran group. It was a veteran group of 3,000 people. And I went in there and I asked the guy who owned the group, I said, hey, do you mind if I give free business advice? He's like, oh, that'd be awesome. So I started giving free business advice. And I thought it was basic business advice, but apparently it wasn't. And I made 100K in 3 months with no website, no logo, no branding, no package, no idea what the hell I was doing as far as, this is the structure. I just started talking. People would come to me, hey, can you help me do that? Can you help me do that? Can you help me do that? Yeah. So, okay. I started charging. I charged more and more and more and more. And it just extrapolated from there. And so that started with the veteran space. Now I've moved not only in the veteran space, but beyond with the advisory program. We've, our last client was, not our last client, but one of the clients that just finished was Denise. She's the special assistant to the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. And we helped her through the election process. And they crushed it. We're really in a good place when it comes to that advisory, but I honed my skills in the veteran space. We're still in the veteran space with the HAVE NFT, HAVENFT.io, where we have the Marine Bulldog, then we have, NFT in the shape in the challenge, the first digital challenge coin. We got the first Medal of Honor NFT challenge coin ever existing from Florent Groberg, who's a spokesman of ours. Pretty cool stuff. And I guess that's where the passion came from for veterans. And we started doing the live events, the symposiums in person, whatever. It was like all these, and then healing, inviting people and veterans to Peru. Now we're working with the nonprofits to it's just extrapolating. Now we're working with Vetcoin, which is we're planning on working with Vetcoin, which is a crypto just for veterans. They have the Vetiverse, which is the metaverse for veterans. And then there's the Veteran Chamber of Commerce that we just hooked up with yesterday. We're building this massive thing, but we're not creating anything new. We're like corralling what's already out there, because face it, what shocked me was when I learned that 22 veterans a day commit suicide, and it hasn't changed over 20 plus years, but there's about 300 times more nonprofits out there than there were 20 years ago, and still it hasn't changed. So what does that mean? That means there's too much competition and fragmentation. And so we just want to bring that together. So we're not creating anything new, not a nonprofit. We're just bringing those together out there, it's already there, and making it more powerful. So that's sort of what we're doing in the veteran space.
Do you find it difficult at all to keep, I guess you would say, like one foot into the veteran world, one foot into the civilian world?
No, because it's part of who I am. It's not my identity, but let's say in the corporate world, they used to call me either captain or general. They had no idea what rank was. I was only a sergeant, but I didn't say no. Right? I was like, I prefer general. No, I was like, but it's, oh, General Kuhn. Oh my God, Captain Kuhn. They always say, like, because of my directness, right? And just that regimented way of thinking and solution oriented, very basic thinking, a thought process. Copy machine doesn't work. Is it plugged in? Someone else is tearing it apart. It's like, it's that kind of, that's the way I think. And that's the way we think in the military, as you know. So yeah, I guess that sort of explains a lot when I think about it. I just never thought of it like that.
Well, you glossed over it. I want to spend a little bit of time on the challenge coin NFT, what's going on there. Cause it is, I'll call it, we'll call it that, cutting edge program, because there's nothing like it. There's been nothing like it. And the whole NFT blockchain thing is still, we had a good friend of ours, Joel Cleland, on the other day, and got some more cryptocurrency education and blockchain education. So tell us what's going on with the HAVE NFT.
Okay, so well, first of all, an NFT, for anyone who doesn't know what an NFT is, non-fungible token, it's basically, if you want to break it down and put it into normal business language, it's fractional ownership in an asset, digital or otherwise. So you can have fractional ownership in real estate, fractional ownership in art, fractional ownership in a movement, fractional ownership in a nonprofit, all through an NFT. It's proof of ownership is all it is. So what's beautiful about NFT is, for instance, when you do fractional real estate in a fractional investment in real estate through NFTs, and if you're doing what they call, let's say you're raising money for your 20% for that you can go to the bank and then get the money to build the building or fix the building or whatever you want to do, flip it. Well, now I, as an investor, sign all the contracts, transfer the money, all this kind of stuff. And if I ever want to get out of it, I got to find someone to buy it if they ever would, or I just got to stick it out. Well, with an NFT, one time, smart ledger, done. Everything that I have is in that NFT, proof of ownership. I sell that NFT anywhere I want on any market. Everything, including the dividends, are transferred over to the next owner. No contracts, no lawyers, none of that. It's amazing. So that's an NFT. That's the process out there. It's you can make your course on podcasting, whatever it is, you can make that an NFT. Then whoever, if they want to sell it to somebody, let them. You get a commission from it, right? Because it's your creation. Like there's so many ways to go about NFTs. So we decided to make challenge coins into NFTs because, as we know, that's the number one military collectible when it comes down to it. Everyone has a whole big bunch of them. I always have one around, right? So, we decided to do the NFT. We're like, okay, you have to do application, and you have to do, out the back end. What are you going to do with application and utility? And so we're partnering with up to 100 veteran nonprofits, so that every time we sell an NFT, a percentage of that goes to these nonprofits, so that they can keep growing in what they're doing. Lane's working on a program right now. We're actually seeking out specific ones, choosing veterans. The process has yet to be defined, and then we're going to pay, document, and see what the outcome is. And we want to document all of these healing modalities, all the transition programs, and we want to document that into the blockchain. So there's one central location for everyone who gets out of the military, is suffering from depression, PTSD, or suicidal thoughts. They have one place to go to where all the connections are, where everything is, not only with a contact number, but in NFT, you can put NFT, it's living history. So in NFT, you can put in the organization, all the videos, all the testimonials, you can put in results, you can put in diagnoses, everything that you want in the NFT, and you can't destroy it or change it. So it's a very transparent way of doing what you're doing. And it's always like it's hard to hide who buys what on the metaverse, because there's a ledger that anyone can read. Right. So it's very transparent, very honest. And that's why you see people, whales, they call them, that buy big bunches of crypto. They know exactly who it is, like immediately. Oh, you just crashed Bitcoin, sold $1.5 billion. Thank you, Goldman Sachs, or whatever. Like, oh, because we see who it is. Yeah. And that's sort of what we're doing. And then, of course, the application and the utility at the back end, you have access to our community, you have access to investment pools, you have access to our staking. So basically, we're going to take parts of the profit, we're going to hedge it or stake it so that we can give a return to anyone who holds an NFT. The NFT pre-sale price is $400. The NFT price for the public is $500. Anyone watching this show can go to HAVE, or can use a coupon code HAVE22, and they can get theirs for the pre-sale price, even though it's over. And I think I got about 700 left. Anyone who buys, the first 500 people that buy get, we already sold half of them, of course, but the first 500 people that buy get the first ever Medal of Honor recipient challenge coin NFT video from Florent Groberg. It's the first one on the planet. There's only 67 living living Medal of Honor recipients. I don't know. I don't know. I know this. You guys do video and audio, but here's the challenge coin in video form from Florent Goldberg from Afghanistan, his Medal of Honor. And if you see on the back, we have the serial number at the very bottom under his CIB. Yeah. And so this is something that doesn't exist yet. And that you get free if you buy an NFT, first 500 people. And then it goes from there, because an NFT is like, we sell it and we have a percentage of that NFT no matter who buys it. I don't care if 300 people buy it. We have 300 times 5% commission on that, as long as it goes. That's why everyone wants to create NFTs, because it's a massive flow. If you blow up like Punk Rock Monkeys or whatever they're called, if you see those, they're selling them for $1.5 million. You get 5% of that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Passive income, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's sort of what we're doing. There's so much more planned that I could go into, but I think you guys get the idea that it's all about consolidating what's already out there. We're not creating anything new. We want to create a massive power behind the veterans, because 18 million veterans in America, it's shrinking as it goes because the forces are shrinking as well. And if you look at the population as a whole, about 2% of the entire population are entrepreneurs, right? 1% of the population is a veteran, but 13% of that 1% are entrepreneurs. That's a huge thing. That's a huge sign. What does that mean? For me, really clear. When I got out, I knew I could crush it, but I had absolutely no idea where to start. That's what's missing, that transition piece. Not just the transition, but where do I start? Once veterans get started, we know what can happen, right? Absolutely can crush it. And sort of that's for us the missing piece. And that's sort of what we're working on, along with the healing modalities.
Yeah, which I think is a very interesting piece, because, you know, folks get so wrapped around the axle that everything has to be nonprofit and all this. And it's like, you got to run a business.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, last time I checked, I got bills that I got to pay, you know, so it's okay to make money.
Yeah.
And here's the special word for the Camden's generation: social enterprise, giving back and helping out. It's okay to do that, folks. That's a great tool. And you're solving a problem. Actually, you're solving at least two. There's probably like 18 other subsets, but between, you know, because I've addressed this many times, where do I go? Because, you know, I'm getting out and I get this list from the TAPS course, or my sergeant major or first sergeant hands me this list of veteran support organizations, nonprofits. And I'm just like, huh? I mean, it's literally gone from, you know, when I retired, you know, nearly 15 years ago, where there was one or two, to, you know, 300 plus that are just in transition.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets, I mean, I've talked with guys and they quite.
Where do you go? How do you choose the right one? Is it a popularity contest? You know what I mean? Seriously, it's like who can afford the marketing? You know, that's basically what happens in the end. And let's face it, if you want to, like, I've had some people approach us like, oh, you guys are trying to make money off veterans. I'm like, where were you the last 4 years when Lane and I spent everything out of our pocket to hold events for you, to invite you and to have it for free? You didn't have to pay for that stuff. I flew from Europe on my own dime, paid hotels on my own dime, got billionaires to come and coach other veterans for free because they were friends of ours. No one said a word then. Oh, great event. Now it's like, we're not trying to make a lot of money. We're not. We're trying to create an ecosystem where it's a constant wheel of giving back through these 100 nonprofits and through the veteran and healing space, into the Vetiverse, real estate, the whole works. And that's something where everyone can have abundance. Like, anyone who joins can have abundance. And it's not just for veterans, it's for veterans, their families, and their kids. Because let's face it, you know, I didn't really hit me. I mean, you think about it, but it never really hit me until this last year. I was home. My father told me, he said, man, when you went to Iraq, every day was hell for me. Like, I never knew if you were going to call, if I was going to get a call. I was like, wow, every day. He said, yeah, it was hell. And so when we go to war or even deploy anywhere else, our wife and kids are behind. That's trauma, just like a different kind of trauma, but it's still trauma. And then those who lose somebody, that's I don't even know. I don't even want to know what that's like. So we're working with those organizations as well, or planning to work with more of those organizations, and they're welcome into the community ecosystem also. So it's a big deal. It really is, and it's something that I'm fortunate, and I feel fortunate and humbled that I have, how do you want to say it, been into the cutting edge of this kind of movement and been at the highest levels of this movement, not just ours, but in Military Influencer, We Are the Mighty, and all these other places, living in Europe. I mean, I started in 2000, I think it was 17, I think it was. And I went online, started doing those live courses, right? Those live videos. 3 months later, the first time I was into the veteran space for 20 years. 3 months later, I was speaking on stage at Bunker Labs, Military Influence Conference, Clever Talks, Jocko Willink. I opened, and Jocko Willink came after me. It was like, what? And then I got voted second, number 2 military entrepreneur influencer in America. And I'm like, I don't even live there. So I know it's crazy. I'm very fortunate to have the experience that I have and been able to bring it to the veteran world, because that gives me real, true credibility. I'm not just talking. Like, you can Google the hell out of me. Half of it's in German, but you'll see pictures. And it's something that I can actually give back to the veteran space from me. And now I want to keep giving it back, but we want to put it on top. And that's why we built the NFT system. So it's basically a financing system. I could start a Kickstarter page too. Right. Or I could raise funds and start an investment fund, which we were doing before we did the NFTs, So there's a lot of
I love the Kickstarter comparison, because I was just thinking back to our conversation with Joel McClellan last week, or not McClellan, crap. We had a whole conversation about doesn't have the Mick on there, but Joel Clellan, and how when you look into NFTs and crypto and those type of things, you have to look past the first layer. Is the thing where people get stuck. And you talk about people saying that they think you're trying to make money off of veterans. It's because they're only looking at that first layer. And I love the comparison to Kickstarter, because that's kind of how I've been looking at it in my notes here. This is just a different form. Dad, you said social enterprise of what I would call like impact purchasing. The company that comes to mind, because we've talked about them all the time in business school, was Tom's Shoes. That it's like you're selling a mediocre shoe for twice the price of a good shoe, and people are lining up to buy it because you're donating a shoe. And it's those type of things. And once you look past that first layer into that second and third layer, that's where you can see the real impact that a business is wanting to have. And that's what I think is really cool to see with you, Steven.
Well, we call it profit for purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's the largest profit for purpose enterprise in the metaverse. It was when we started. It may not be anymore, but it was when we started. And yeah, we make a profit, but it's for a purpose, a specific purpose behind everything that we do. And if anybody knows me, and they do, a lot of people do, they know that we give everything we have and more, which is why we have other businesses. Obviously, this can't be run alone, but this one we're ratcheting up right now. Like, we want to get into the fractional real estate investment, which is just amazing. And you can think about it. You can help a veteran create a real estate portfolio starting with $400. You can't do that in any other space. You can't go to you guys are building a 35-door apartment house. Okay, can I give you $400 and get a piece? Of like, what are you, nuts? Get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, but if you buy an NFT for $400, you got a piece of the pie, and you can build it and build it and build it. And maybe you make some more money and you buy 2 from someone else who wants to sell, and you just build from there. It's incredible. It's incredible.
And because it has that business model that it's centered around, it's sustainable in the long term. I remember one of my first business models that I drew up that I'm very excited to get back to one day was in my ag business days of the marijuana legalization popping up all over the place. And I saw this opportunity to tie that to tackling food deserts. And it was this big thing to where it was like, there's so much money to be made there. And there's all these, in the early Colorado days, Dad, we would always say the Texas oil guys coming up and making so much freaking money in Colorado, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, why not trim that profit down by a huge percentage and start tackling other, similar, or not, I guess similar problems in the sense that you're growing a plant, but other types of problems. And then you can sustainably do that because you have the backbone of a business that's supporting it all along, rather than having to scrounge for donations.
That's the key, though. I was working with we had a bunch of projects. One of them was turning shipping containers into air-conditioned hydroponic pods in the desert for desert communities to grow food. Right? Great, amazing idea, but who's going to pay for it? And how are you going to sustain it? And who's going to be the man? Who wants to drive out in the Sahara, wherever they were in the desert, and fix this thing? You know what I mean? Like the HVAC goes out, it's going to take 3 days for them to get out there. All the food's dead. You know, it's like who's going to sustain this kind of thing? And that's always the issue with all these wonderful ideas, is how you're going to sustain it. Where's the money? You know, there was a tree farm in Africa for these trees that grew, I don't know, like 8 times faster than any other tree, and they suck down 3 times the carbon as any other tree. And they wanted to plant these trees in Africa and hire local communities and build houses for them, and they would take care of the plantation, and then they would also be the police force and everything else, right? So it's within one community, and each community had a plantation, so to say, of these trees. That was sustainable. It was a great idea, you know, because then, you know, carbon credit investment funds are just, you can't even get them anymore. They're all sold out, like everything's packed to the brim, that kind of stuff. And so looking for that sustainable business model to support a profit for purpose is really difficult sometimes.
I'm really curious about, because you've talked about a lot of things, and I want to focus on one thing in the digital verse sort of thing that you're doing with the NFTs and HAVE NFT. What was the biggest roadblock that you had to overcome, at least so far, in setting that all up?
Well, honestly, because we preach taking imperfect action, meaning don't think too long, just take action. First thing I did was call an advisor, the advisor we used for our investment fund that we were starting. And he said, and I said, look, I want to sell challenge coins, real challenge coins, on a crowdsourcing campaign to raise equity for the fund, right? So we can have equity in the fund through challenge coins. He's like, you're gonna manufacture challenge coins and sell those things? I'm like, yeah, they're great. Or he said, why don't you just make NFTs? And I was like, the hell's an NFT? You know, this was 6 months ago, Otis. Right? So, you know, and next thing you know, he's like, let me talk to 2 people, because I told him our idea. He's like, wow, it's amazing. So he talked to some people, they came to us. We're going to pay for everything. We're going to set the tech. We're going to do the marketing. We're going to crush this. What a great idea. What a great mission. And we're like, shit, okay, sit back and let it happen. So we did our part. They did their part. Or at least we thought they were. And then when we launched, on the day we launched, we had a full whitelist. A whitelist is a waiting list for people who are in the community, learned about us, and want to buy the NFT first before the public sale. So we had the whitelist, 2,500 people on there. The day of the launch, tech doesn't work. Can't buy them, right? Just total catastrophe. We still did 6 figures, but it was a total catastrophe. We literally had to walk people through 30 to 45 minutes each, one-on-one on Zoom on how to. It was a disaster. And so the next day, they, being a blockchain company, said, wow, why don't you just give all the money back and say that it didn't work? I'm like, what are you talking about? This isn't an NFT. This is a mission. We've been doing this for 4 years, man. What are you talking about? You know, like, he's like, no, NFT world, you have to sell out. And I'm like, no, this is a fundraising vehicle. So educating the crypto world on that, and then educating the real world on crypto, you know what I mean? That's the biggest challenge, because only 6% of the entire planet even has anything to do with crypto. So it's a massive blue ocean, but your boat's this big right now, you know? So, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, ooh, you're in a little dinghy. So it's all about education. And we put a lot of effort into the education as well. We have a veteran, James Rodriguez, who's killing it. He's like he's our brain when it comes to crypto and NFTs and trading and hedging and all that kind of stuff. So thank God we got him on board. But I think that was the biggest challenge. The second biggest challenge was when our partner said, we're leaving, you know, who said for us to liquidate. So we had to switch within a week, complete blockchain platforms, different crypto. We went from one crypto to another. Oh man, it was tough, but team's good. We adapted, improvised, adapt, and overcame, to quote Clint. And you know, hamburger, what was it? I forget what the name it was, Hamburger Hill or whatever.
Hamburger Hill. Yep.
Yeah. And so I think those are the 2 biggest ones. And you know, it's funny. I saw the potential when I realized what the smart contract really was. You know, the proof of ownership. You do it one time. It doesn't matter who buys it, who sells it. It never changes. It just changes hands. And that's incredible. That's incredible. So if you donate to 100 nonprofits every month and you program that into your smart contract, as soon as you click on buy, it automatically gets shot into their wallet. You don't have to do a check. You don't have to do accounting. None of that stuff. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is, and some awesome lessons learned in that space too. everything from how do you spell NFT to what do you, you know, what do you do when the person who's your expert, and you know, that's actually, you know, in a wider sense, not just like in the blockchain world. When you think about it, when you're expert, the person that you're relying on, because I've seen this happen in startup worlds, you know, with the got to have my co-founder who's a technical expert or whatever. I've had a couple of guys that I've helped with that, and then that co-founder, for whatever reason, walks away, and it's like, dude, I don't even know how to even turn on what they did. So yeah, that's a tough space to be.
Well, we had a veteran-owned company that pretty much saved us, and within a week had us turned around on a new blockchain platform out of Texas. So quite happy with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
In the, you know, talking about the blue ocean that is, you know, the crypto world, NFTs and all of that. One thing I was reading yesterday, I just had to share for this, and this give you at least one of you give you an easy, what did you learn? I was reading an article yesterday about the fashion and the virtual fashion industry and the surge towards the metaverse on that. They had this example of a Gucci bag that they sold for $6 in the metaverse, or I don't know which specific metaverse it was, and this, you can tell I'm getting out of my wheelhouse already. But it winds up selling for more than a real Gucci bag was selling in the real world, and all this kind of stuff. And they had it at a $50 billion valuation expected for virtual fashion by 2030. And that's one example of it. But I just had to use that to help illustrate this. You know, we talked about it with Joel of the you know, it's just like early days of the internet, how it's like there's another phase coming and it's going to be huge, and it's hard to see all the different stuff. I mean, freaking buying a virtual Gucci bag for $5,000. Come on.
I know, crazy. Well, I mean, if you look at back in the day when the internet came out, everyone was looking at websites and platform like that, and then people like Google were like, wait a second, why are you looking at the front when the back is where the power is? So the entire internet itself, and not just the front, what's showing, that's where they got their power. So I think what we're talking about here is what's behind it. Like, what's the power behind it? Not just what it delivers, but what's the power behind it? It isn't even utilized yet. There's a lot of ridiculous. I mean, I know a guy, I can't say what kind of business it is, but it's where you can win money, put it that way, right? And it's on the blockchain, no regulations yet. Founded it 4 months ago, has brought in $700 million already. Oh my gosh. Just through the blockchain and crypto. Crazy. And I never even thought of what he's doing. So I'm flying to London and meeting him day after tomorrow, among other, I have a speaking gig in London, actually 3, and I'm going to meet him, and he wants to talk about how I can sort of tie in HAVE and see if we can get some of that. You know what I mean?
So I guess
wait, I just got to ask Steven this. Do you have a translator that'll explain it to you?
Well, he's from India, or from Pakistan. I can't remember, from India or Pakistan. But he's British, so he's been there for a while. And sorry, my daughter's here. Trying to help her put her Lego together. Couldn't get it. Daddy couldn't do it.
So
yeah, so I know. So
looking,
he's a guy. Go ahead.
So looking ahead, you know, we've mentioned some very different types of business models, and there's even more out there. And then we talked last week with Joel about what we call the accidental scam artists, who are trying to do good and, you know, just don't have the education, don't have the skills and all that kind of stuff. So looking forward past what I guess we could go ahead and call what's probably going to be a Web3 bubble of some sort, what do you think will be one of the biggest, or maybe a few different ideas of the lasting forms of NFTs, like the things that we'll actually be using? One I heard the other day that was like the best version of what people thought a QR code could be was one I heard, and I was like, I could wrap my head around that one. So what are some that you see being a lasting, like everyday type impact?
Investment in just about anything. Like I can invest in anything, and it won't even be called investment, because it's basically a micro purchase, like $400 for an NFT to get you into real estate. I think that's just going to be so normal, because it makes it such an ease. And then you actually own it. You don't have to go to lawyers, none of that stuff. You just own it, and you sell it if you want to sell it in a secondary market. So I think that's going to be common. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have apps where you can just, oh, actually, they actually do have apps already where you can just like swap. Oh, I want that. Do you want to swap? Yeah. Okay. Boom. I had people, I'm in the metaverse. I got, I don't know, like 31 or something, 28 or 31 properties in Brooklyn. I have no idea why, but I got them because they were so cheap, like $20 each. And I'm like, I want to buy in the metaverse. So I did. And then they gave you some free NFTs of some football jersey. I had people offering me money for those things. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell I'm selling. Like, I don't even know what it is yet. You know, like, how does a football jersey have to do with Brooklyn? Oh, it's Brooklyn. Oh, okay. You know, so there's a lot to be said for that out there. But already it's just people throwing stuff at you. Like, just, hey, can I buy your property? Can I buy you? I'm like, no, if you want to buy it now, no, let me wait. Maybe it'll be worth more. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it'll be commonplace that we're going to be, I mean, the metaverse is coming whether we like it or not, period. I mean, if Facebook changes their name to Meta, then we know what's going on, right?
So I think the investment thing there, and something I just connected that to, going back to some development economic stuff, is there's these programs that had trouble, and I think the NFT, blockchain can really solve this, of the micro loans for farmers in all these developing countries, and tying it to these different incentive programs and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure, I hope there's somebody smarter than me out there that's already connected those two dots. And if not, we got to get on a phone call after this.
Well, there's the one company we're working with. They're doing meta trees, for instance. People buy NFTs, and then they plant trees in the metaverse, but also in the real universe. And then their carbon credit, they get carbon credits and use the carbon credits to give a return to the investors. Right. So they planted trees on the metaverse, and then they have carbon credits in the real world that then kick back to the metaverse to give the profit shares back.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
I'm not even going to try and understand that one. Right?
Yeah. It's nutty. It's nutty.
Yeah. Yeah.
You tapping out over there, Dad?
Yeah. That's right.
One too many keywords.
I got trees right here. I mean, I don't, what? No, man. I was doing really good until that last part. And now,
okay. Well, how about this? Otis?
Boom.
Carbon credits, a typical tree, depending on where it is, bringing $1,000 to $2,000 a year in credits from the government, right? If you have 1 million trees times $2,000, you see what I'm saying? That's where the return comes from. So people are planting trees all over the world because they want to get carbon credits, which is basically money for nothing, from nothing, which the government made up to make more money from nothing, right? So we're really good at that in our governments. And so they're basically saying, like, I'm in Germany, they're always way over their carbon limit. But they go to the Democratic Republic of Congo and buy their carbon credits and say, okay, now we're safe. What carbon goes then migrates to Africa or what? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. But that's how they came up with this idea to make money. And so that's why carbon credits are like a big, big deal. You can't even find an investment fund hardly that you can invest in because they're all tapped out. Yeah. As an example.
I go back to what I was saying. I was doing pretty good in the what did I learn until I got hit with I still don't learn that.
Oh man,
I
thought I was making it simple. I guess not.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a plug in because I haven't done it yet. Our buddy Joel and his YouTube channel. Yeah, I got to spend some time watching some of that and get myself educated. So that I'm not the old guy on the front porch, my rocking chair, saying that metaverse thing, what Web3 ain't never. Yeah,
ain't not going to never.
That's right. That's right, man. But I did learn something, and I thank you. And I know I should have expected it from you, Steven, is explaining what the NFT really is, and it's that just plain and simple fractional ownership. It's I mean, that to me, like I said, I should have expected you to explain it to me. Because it just breaks it all down. This whole non-fungible token and all the the fancy words don't really make sense until you understand that. Yeah, it's just you're just buying a piece of the pie. It's quite literally say it's like buying a stock.
Exactly.
Man, Camden, what'd you learn?
Steven, you said this early on, focus on intention over outcome. And I really like that because It's something when I do my planning, I like to think outcomes because it's, what am I going to do? What is the goal of all of these things that I'm going to do? But like you said, you can't control the outcome. You can only control your intention. So I really love that.
And I'll give you another one. Intention turns desire into action that become things.
Mm.
So your intention takes to the desire that you have, because desire alone without intention does nothing, right? That's what dreams are made of, I guess, desire, right? So desire, intention turns desire into action, which turns it into things. And so that's something that I sort of live by. So I'm always focused on the intention. The reason you do that is when you're certain about who you are and you're certain about your ability to deploy your genius and your talents in the world around you at any given situation, you don't have to worry about the how. You have to worry about the outcome because you know you're going to get there anyway. Set the goal, envision it, paint the picture, see yourself in that picture, let go, and drive forward. In perfect action, creating as you go. Yeah. That's sort of how I did what I did with everything that's in the book, working for all these people. I just said, I want to do this. It's like want energy, right? So I call it want energy. I do a lot of reading. So these come from different books. Couldn't tell you which one. And this is a great analogy. When you want to go out and check the mail, what do? You go out and check the mail, right? If you don't check the mail, even though you wanted to, are you upset? No, you just didn't check it. You'll check it later. If we had that energy in everything that we do, how easy would life be? Because when we put too much, like you don't go, I got to go check the mail. Oh man, I got to make a strategy, set the goal. I believe I can do it. I can go check the mail. You know what I mean? You just go freaking check the mail. There's no thought process to it. There's no doubt in your mind. You're going to go check the mail. So if we can put our minds at that place to achieve the things that we want to achieve, my God, we're powerful. And so I'm working on that like hardcore to make it happen. And I see like glimpses sometimes it really happens. You're like, my God, as soon as you're aware of it, it shuts off. You're like, damn, it's like you gotta like get that flow going and keep it going. So yeah, I could really get into that because I absolutely love
well, I want to ask, that makes me think, because we talked about it before, of the difference between wants and like want to wants. Would you say that philosophy works for want to wants in that kind of a sense?
What's a want to want?
It's the I want to go hiking. I don't actually want to go hiking. I like the idea of being somebody who hikes.
Well, no, it's completely different. I don't think that's because there's no intention behind it. It's just something you want to do because you want to be like something or somebody else. No, I think so. No, I don't think it has anything to do with that.
That's a short rabbit hole. We're good there. All right.
Yeah, good. That one out. Yeah.
Steven, what did you learn?
I saw you guys writing down everything, and now I know why. Because you knew what you learned. Oh, damn.
There's a test at the end.
Yeah, I know. Look, I honestly, what I learned is that repetition is the master of all learning. And I love it when I come on these shows like this, because when I get to talk about the talents and the core things that I live by, the core beliefs that I live by, it just embeds it even deeper into me. So that repetition it just makes you a pro at what you do. And not only to the outside, because it's not really about that. It's about the inside. Like how sure and certain am I in my ability, right? And these talk shows, I had one, I literally back to back, and now I got one in an hour, 3 today. It just really makes you dig deep and let go. And every time I articulate this, or with few exceptions, it's always different. Same message, but it's tailored to the situation, the people I'm talking to, this kind of thing. So that repetition in those different modalities brings you to a point where, man, no one can touch you in your own business, in your own stuff. And that's just sort of, I think I really came clear to me today, because I rarely work with 2 people at one time, or, have 2 interviewers. And going back between the 2 modalities, it was quite learning. I hope that answers your question.
How can folks get in touch with you? What's the best way to learn more about the HAVE NFT and Humble Alpha? Yep.
For sure. Humble Alpha is humblealpha.com. The advisory program is humblealpha.com/advisory. And then the HAVE NFT is havenft.io. Anyone who uses HAVE22 as a promo code gets it for the pre-sale price. Go check it out. Right now we have the veteran bulldog, which is, after the Marine bulldog mascot. The next mascot will be the Air Force falcon, and then the goat from the Navy, and then the mule from the Army. Mule. We got the best mascot, didn't we? Jesus. I don't know. Goat. I don't know. Goat, mule.
Yeah.
Anyway, so stubborn mule. It sort of fits in with a lot of the Army. I guess because it's so big, it's like a tanker ship actually. Marines are like a speedboat; they can turn on a dime, and the Army's like take a couple miles and take a turn. So
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know what the selection criteria was whenever that.
I don't know how I got in. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Steven, this has been great, man. We really appreciate your time, and always great
pleasure.
to catch up with you. Camden,
Absolutely.
run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, Steven Kuhn, for joining us today, and our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.